Get out. The command was sharp, cold, and unforgiving. Claire froze for a moment, the words echoing through the quiet boutique like thunder. All around her, the eyes of every customer and employee were on her, full of judgment and whispers. She stood there, dressed in a plain white t-shirt and joggers, feeling the weight of their silent condemnation. Yet, despite the humiliation, Claire kept her head high, her heart steady. Something flashed in her eyes. She walked toward the exit, a question burning in the air. How far would she go to reclaim the dignity they had so cruelly tried to strip away? If you've ever been judged unfairly, this story is for you. Follow us to see how courage can change everything. Before we go any deeper, have you ever been told you don't belong somewhere? Claire Matthews was not what most people expected to see on Rodeo Drive, a stretch of Los Angeles renowned for its glitz glamour and high-end luxury boutiques. At 34, she was a woman who prized simplicity and comfort over flash and extravagance. That morning, she had chosen a plain white t-shirt and gray joggers, her hair pulled back into a loose ponytail. No designer labels, no ostentatious accessories, just a woman with a purpose. Today was special. Her husband's birthday was approaching, and Claire wanted to find a gift that spoke to his refined taste and their shared appreciation for meaningful things. She had spent weeks researching the perfect present, a vintage chronograph watch from the 1960s, a rare piece known not just for its craftsmanship, but for the story behind it. Robert, her husband, was a successful investor who had built his fortune with patience and integrity, qualities Claire admired deeply. She knew he wouldn't want the usual flashy items that cluttered most gift lists. Instead, she hoped this watch would capture the subtle elegance and history they both cherished. Arriving early at the boutique named Elegance, Claire felt a mix of excitement and calm. The store itself was a testament to luxury crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting a soft glow over meticulously arranged displays of jewelry and watches. The air was cool and perfumed with a subtle scents of rare colognes and fine leather. She stepped inside, the soft chime of a bell announcing her arrival, but immediately sensed a shift in atmosphere. Instead of the warm welcome she expected, the boutique felt unusually cold, almost dismissive. Claire moved purposefully toward the display case housing the watch she sought. Her eyes traced the delicate engravings and patina on the timepiece. It was more than a watch, it was a piece of art, a legacy. Just as she was about to reach out, a saleswoman in a sharp black dress appeared, her expression tight and her gaze flickering over Claire's casual attire with unmistakable disdain. "May I help you?" the woman asked, the politeness in her voice thinly veiling a question of belonging. "Yes, I'm interested in the vintage chronograph," Claire replied evenly, pointing to the watch. The woman's eyebrow lifted. "That piece is priced at $85,000. Claire nodded. "I'm aware. I would like to see it, please." There was a hesitation, a silent exchange with a nearby manager, Marcus, who emerged with a calculating look. Marcus had built his reputation on exclusivity, on knowing exactly who fit and who didn't in this world of opulence. To him, Claire's joggers and simple tee didn't belong here, and he made no effort to hide his judgment. He approached with a practiced smile. "Madam, we have a policy for high-value items. I'll need to see proof of funds or identification before proceeding." Claire's eyes met his steadily. "I'm here to purchase a gift for my husband. He'll be arriving shortly." Marcus's smile tightened. "Perhaps you'd like to browse other items in the meantime, more accessible pieces." "No, thank you. I'd like to purchase this watch." The tension thickened as Marcus exchanged glances with the saleswoman, who watched Claire with thinly veiled skepticism. Around them, other customers slowed their browsing, casting curious or judgmental glances. Some whispered behind their hands. Claire felt their eyes, the unspoken assumptions hanging heavy in the air. She had been underestimated countless times before, dismissed for her simple appearance, her quiet demeanor, but never so openly, so brazenly. Yet she refused to let their judgment shake her. Claire's presence here was not an accident or a whim. It was deliberate, a statement that dignity and worth were not dictated by labels or appearances. Despite the growing hostility, Claire remained composed, focusing on the watch and what it represented: a connection to her husband, to a life built on mutual respect and understanding. But as the minutes passed, it became clear Marcus was not interested in facilitating her purchase. Instead, he positioned himself as a gatekeeper, determined to prevent her from owning what she rightfully sought. Claire's heart grew heavier, not just from the rejection, but from the stark realization that this wasn't about money or status, it was about prejudice. In that boutique filled with sparkling treasures, the most valuable thing being judged was the woman standing quietly among them. As Marcus began to insist she leave the store without the watch, Claire knew this moment would mark more than just a failed shopping trip. It would ignite a reckoning not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been judged by the clothes they wore or the life they led. She took a deep breath, steadied her shoulders, and prepared to face whatever came next. Because this story wasn't over. It had only just begun. Claire had faced judgment before. Quiet whispers behind her back, polite dismissals, the subtle sidelining in social circles. But nothing prepared her for the boldness of the disdain she now encountered inside Elegance. The boutique's polished floors reflected the chill in the air, the sparkling chandeliers dimmed by the coldness of exclusion. As Marcus, the boutique manager, approached with an air of authority, Claire felt the unspoken message clear: she did not belong here. His tailored Italian suit and polished shoes stood in stark contrast to her casual outfit, a deliberate reminder of the world she was being kept out of. Yet, Claire did not flinch. She met his gaze evenly, her calmness masking a quiet resolve. "Madam, the Chronomaster is one of our most exclusive pieces." Marcus began, his tone layered with condescension. "Our policy requires verification for such purchases. Perhaps you would prefer to browse our more accessible collections." Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm here to purchase that watch. For my husband. He will be here shortly." Marcus smiled thinly, clearly doubting her words. He exchanged a knowing glance with Veronica, the saleswoman who had greeted Claire with barely concealed contempt. Their silent communication was a pact. This was a game they played with customers they deemed unworthy. The saleswoman's voice dripped with skepticism. "We've seen this before. People who come in to handle merchandise take pictures and leave. It's a waste of time for our genuine clients." Claire felt the sting of the accusation not just as a customer, but as a person. She could hear the faint whispers from nearby customers, their eyes darting between her and the luxury on display. The humiliation was public, blatant. Yet Claire's voice remained steady. "I do not owe anyone an explanation for my intentions. I am here to make a purchase." Marcus's patience waned. "Without proof of funds, I must insist you leave." Claire's heart pounded, but she held her ground. She could see the growing discomfort around her, the couple who had paused their conversation, the subtle shifts in posture among the staff. It was a moment of reckoning. Then, with a deliberate calm, Claire said, "If you believe I am here for anything other than to buy, then you clearly do not understand what dignity means." Marcus's expression hardened. He moved toward her, his voice low but sharp. "People like you don't belong here." That sentence, cold and final, echoed louder than any luxury chandelier. Claire felt the world tilt, but only for a moment. Something inside her stirred a flicker of the strength that had carried her through years of silent endurance. Without a word, she turned toward the exit. Her footsteps were steady, her head held high. Outside, the bright California sun contrasted sharply with the darkness she left behind. Yet within her a fire had been lit, not of anger, but of purpose. She knew this was more than a personal slight. It was a reflection of a world too quick to judge by appearance, too eager to deny basic respect. Claire's revelation was clear: she would not be defined by their narrow views. As she walked away, she silently vowed that this story would not end here. That the dignity they tried to strip away would be reclaimed not just for her, but for anyone who had ever been made to feel invisible. Because sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truths. And Claire Matthews was ready to be heard. Claire stepped out of the boutique, the heavy glass door closing behind her with a definitive click that echoed louder than she expected. Outside, the sun shone brightly over Rodeo Drive, its golden rays illuminating the luxury stores and the impeccably dressed patrons who passed by oblivious or indifferent to what had just transpired inside Elegance. Despite the heat and the whispers still ringing in her ears, Claire's expression remained calm, her posture steady. She needed a moment to gather her thoughts, to let the sting of humiliation fade, and to prepare herself for what might come next. The realization settled heavily on her shoulders. This wasn't merely a failed shopping trip. It was a clear, unvarnished example of prejudice, a judgment passed solely on her appearance, her choice of clothes, and nothing else. As she walked slowly down the block, she caught the eye of a woman exiting a nearby cafe, a well-known actress who had been shopping inside the boutique moments earlier. The woman's face was etched with concern, and she hurried over. "I saw what happened," the actress said quietly, her voice filled with empathy. "That was unacceptable. I just wanted to say I'm sorry you had to go through that." Claire managed a small, appreciative smile. "Thank you. It's surprising how quick people are to judge. Sometimes it's not even about money or status, it's about how you look, what you wear. That's what they decide on." The actress nodded. "It's a shame. You deserve respect no matter what." Grateful for the brief kindness, Claire continued her walk, trying to push the humiliation aside. She wasn't one to complain or seek attention over personal slights. Over the years, she had learned to carry herself quietly, to let her actions speak louder than words. But this was different. This time, the rejection was not subtle. It was blatant and public. Inside Elegance, the scene was quite different. Marcus, the boutique manager, had returned to the sales floor where he was surrounded by staff members. His demeanor was lighter, almost boastful, as he recounted the incident. "She came in wearing workout clothes, looking like she just stepped off the gym floor, asking for the Chronomaster," Marcus said with a sneer. "I had to protect the store's reputation. We can't let just anyone handle such valuable merchandise." His words were met with nods and quiet laughter among the employees. Veronica, the saleswoman who had first greeted Claire, exchanged smirks with the other staff. To them, this was a victory, a gatekeeping success. But unbeknownst to Marcus and his team, the story was far from over. Back outside, Claire's thoughts turned to her husband, Robert. A successful investor known for his calm intellect and unwavering integrity, Robert was a man who valued respect above all else. Claire had no intention of calling him to intervene, not yet. She wanted to face this moment herself, to hold on to her own strength without relying on his power. Still, the knowledge that Robert would arrive soon gave her some comfort. He was expected at the boutique in less than an hour, and Claire hoped to finish the purchase before his arrival, to surprise him with a gift worthy of their life together. But as she walked, she felt a growing unease. Marcus's rejection was more than just a store policy or an overprotective manager's instinct. It was a window into a culture of exclusion, one that Claire now found herself challenging simply by being present. The whispers and judging eyes she'd encountered were not isolated incidents, they were the tip of an iceberg she was only beginning to see. For Claire, this moment sparked a determination that ran deeper than wounded pride. It was a call to confront the subtle biases that permeated even the most polished places, the unspoken rules that told people like her they didn't belong. As she paused near a cafe, sipping water and watching the elegant world continue around her, Claire knew that this story would not end with the door closed in her face. It was only the beginning, because sometimes it takes one quiet person to shine a light on the darkness that others choose to ignore. And Claire Matthews was ready to be that light. Robert Matthews arrived at Elegance with the quiet confidence of a man accustomed to commanding boardrooms and closing deals worth millions. At 34, his presence was calm, yet authoritative. An athletic build, perfectly tailored navy suit, and dark hair touched with subtle gray at the temples. He stepped out of the sleek black SUV, adjusting his tie with precision, ready for what was meant to be a simple lunch with Claire, his wife of 10 years. As Robert approached the boutique's polished entrance, a woman intercepted him with hesitant urgency. "Excuse me, are you Robert Matthews?" she asked, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I just wanted to let you know your wife was asked to leave the store a short while ago. The way she was treated. It was disgraceful." Robert's expression tightened, his calm demeanor flickering briefly with concern. "Thank you for telling me," he replied evenly. The woman hurried away, leaving Robert standing just outside the threshold. He glanced through the window, observing the boutique's interior and the staff milling about, some laughing and whispering as if sharing a private joke at someone's expense. Instead of calling Claire or making an immediate scene, Robert sent a terse text to his assistant. "Reschedule my 2 p.m. meeting." Something came up. Within seconds, the response arrived. "Done." "Everything okay?" Robert replied simply. "Will be." He stepped inside. Elegance, his gaze sweeping over the luxurious displays and sharply dressed employees. Marcus, the boutique manager, was unmistakable, his arrogant posture and polished appearance marking him as the one in control. Robert could see him speaking with Veronica and another saleswoman, their body language relaxed and conspiratorial. Robert's presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. Conversations hushed and staff exchanged glances, some with barely concealed apprehension. Marcus caught sight of him and hurried forward, slipping effortlessly into the role of gracious host. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Elegance." "How may we assist you today?" Marcus asked, the practiced smile stretched across his face. Robert's voice was calm but firm. "I believe you just ejected my wife from your store." A flicker of recognition and horror crossed Marcus's face as Claire appeared behind Robert, her presence both quiet and resolute. The other customers in the boutique had stopped what they were doing, their attention now fixed on the unfolding confrontation. "Mr. Matthews." Marcus stammered, struggling to regain composure. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. If I had known who Mrs. Matthews was—" Robert raised a hand, silencing him. "That's precisely the problem. You didn't know, and that's why you thought it was acceptable to treat her with such disrespect." His gaze locked on Marcus. "We don't judge people here based on how they dress or how they look. We judge by character, and you failed that test." Claire pointed to the vintage watch resting on the velvet display pad, the same piece she had come to purchase. "This is what I wanted." Robert turned back to Marcus, his voice low but carrying unmistakable authority. "My investment firm acquired a controlling interest in Goldstein Luxury Retail just last month. The paperwork finalizes today. Technically, Marcus, I'm your boss." A collective gasp rippled through the boutique. Veronica gasped, placing a hand over her mouth while Marcus swayed slightly, steadying himself against the counter. "But, rather than firing you outright," Robert continued, "I have a different plan." He paused, then added, "I want you to apologize to my wife publicly." The color drained from Marcus's face. I would appreciate the opportunity to learn and improve, sir." "Good," Robert said, nodding sharply. "Because Elegance will be launching a sensitivity training program next week, focusing on unconscious bias and respectful customer service, and my wife will be overseeing the program's development." Claire's expression softened slightly. Though she had not agreed to this role, she understood the strategy. This wasn't about punishment, it was about transformation. Marcus, now visibly humbled, carefully processed the purchase for Claire. The same hands that had once pushed her out now wrapped the vintage watch in premium packaging with trembling care. As Robert and Claire prepared to leave, whispers spread quickly among the boutique's patrons and staff, a cautionary tale about judgment, dignity, and the power of quiet strength. Outside, beneath the Californian sun, Claire looked up at Robert and smiled faintly. This moment marked more than a gift. It was a victory for respect and for anyone who had ever been dismissed too soon. Because sometimes the most profound changes begin with a single act of courage and truth. Robert Matthews strode into the boutique with a quiet confidence that instantly changed the atmosphere. His presence alone commanded attention. Well-tailored navy suit, sharp gaze, and an aura of calm authority that made even the most confident employees pause. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Eyes shifted and an uneasy silence spread across the room. All focus was now on the man who had just arrived. Marcus, the boutique manager, spotted Robert immediately and hurried forward wearing his practiced smile, attempting to mask the flicker of panic in his eyes. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Elegance. How may I assist you today?" Robert's voice was steady but carried a clear edge of seriousness. "I believe you just ejected my wife from this store." The room seemed to freeze. Claire stepped quietly beside Robert, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the charged atmosphere. Around them, other customers stopped browsing, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of curiosity and unease. Marcus swallowed hard, searching for words. "Mr. Matthews, there's been a misunderstanding." If I had known who Mrs. Matthews was, Robert raised a hand to silence him. "That's exactly the problem. You didn't know, and because of that ignorance you thought it was acceptable to treat her with such disrespect and disdain." His gaze locked on Marcus's face, unwavering. "You judged her by her appearance alone, by the clothes she wore, not the person she is." Claire nodded, steady and composed. "I was here to purchase a gift for my husband, a vintage watch carefully chosen. But instead of being treated with basic respect, I was made to feel unwelcome, humiliated in front of others." Marcus's confidence wavered, and he glanced nervously at Veronica and the other staff. The earlier smirks were replaced by uncomfortable silence. Robert's tone sharpened. "You pride yourself on exclusivity, but exclusivity is not an excuse for prejudice. Elegance is a store, yes, but it must also be a place of dignity." Then came the revelation that stunned everyone. "My investment firm recently acquired a controlling interest in Goldstein Luxury Retail, the parent company of this boutique. The paperwork finalizes today." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Technically, Marcus, I am now your boss." A collective gasp swept through the boutique. Veronica's hand flew to her mouth and Marcus leaned slightly against the counter, pale and shaken. Robert's voice softened, but remained firm. "Rather than terminating your employment immediately, I am offering a chance to learn and change. I expect you to apologize to my wife here and now in front of these witnesses." Marcus's face flushed with shame as he turned toward Claire. "Mrs. Matthews, I sincerely apologize for my behavior and for the way you were treated. It was unacceptable, and I regret it deeply." Claire accepted the apology with a quiet nod, the tension in the room easing just slightly. Robert then addressed everyone present. "Starting next week, Elegance will launch a new training program focused on unconscious bias and respectful customer service. Mrs. Matthews has graciously agreed to oversee the development and implementation of this program." The boutique employees exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus nodded reluctantly, aware that the days ahead would be a test of his willingness to change. Finally, Robert turned back to Claire, offering her a supportive smile. "Shall we complete your purchase?" Marcus's hands trembled as he carefully wrapped the vintage watch, the same hands that had once rejected Claire, now handling the transaction with newfound respect. As Claire and Robert left, Elegance whispers followed them, a story of judgment confronted and dignity reclaimed. The boutique's patrons watched in silence, reminded that true luxury is not just in material things but in the respect and kindness we show one another. Outside, beneath the warm California sun, Claire looked up at Robert and smiled, a quiet affirmation that sometimes the greatest victories come not from anger or retaliation, but from courage, grace, and the refusal to be diminished. The boutique fell into a heavy silence as Claire and Robert's departure left the staff and customers with a lingering sense of awe and reflection. The air, once filled with whispers and judgment, now carried a new tension, the undeniable weight of consequence and the promise of change. Back inside, Marcus sat alone in the manager's office, the polished veneer of confidence worn thin by the events that had just unfolded. His mind raced as he replayed Robert's words, the revelation of ownership, the public apology, and the announcement of the new training program. For the first time, he felt the true cost of prejudice, not just to others, but to himself. Across town, Claire sat in a quiet cafe with Robert at their table, a small island of calm amid the bustling city. She still wore the subtle strength that had carried her through the morning's ordeal, but beneath that calm was a simmering determination. The gift she had finally secured, the vintage watch, rested on the table between them, a symbol not just of celebration, but of resilience. "Was all that really necessary?" Claire asked softly, her gaze meeting Robert's. Robert took her hand gently. "Absolutely," he replied. "Not because you're my wife, but because no one deserves to be treated like that. Not here, not anywhere." Claire nodded, feeling a profound sense of validation. The day had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but it had also ignited a deeper purpose. She realized that this was not just about a single incident, but about confronting the unseen barriers that too many faced every day. In the days that followed, elegance began its transformation. The sensitivity training program took shape under Claire's guidance, designed to challenge unconscious biases and foster genuine respect among staff. Workshops, role-playing sessions, and open dialogues encouraged employees to confront their assumptions and learn to see customers and each other with renewed empathy. Marcus, once the embodiment of exclusion, found himself at the center of this change. Humble and sincere, he embraced the opportunity to grow, recognizing that true leadership meant more than managing sales. It meant cultivating an environment where everyone felt valued. The boutique's atmosphere shifted gradually. Customers noticed the difference. Staff greeted visitors with warmth rather than suspicion, listened attentively, and celebrated the diversity of experiences and appearances that walked through the doors. Elegance became more than a place to buy luxury goods. It became a space where dignity was honored and kindness was the currency. Claire's role expanded beyond the training program. She became a quiet ambassador for change, speaking openly about her experience and the importance of challenging prejudice. Her story resonated far beyond Rodeo Drive, inspiring others to stand firm against judgment and to advocate for respect in their own communities. One afternoon, as Claire walked past the boutique, she caught a glimpse of the familiar window display. The vintage watch sat proudly under the soft glow of the chandelier, not just a symbol of wealth, but a testament to perseverance and transformation. She smiled to herself, knowing that the true luxury was not in the price tag but in the journey. The courage to stand tall, the grace to forgive, and the strength to create a better world for those who come after. Because sometimes the most powerful reforms begin not with grand gestures but with a simple act of dignity and the unwavering belief that everyone deserves to be seen and respected. And that belief, Claire knew, was the most precious gift of all. The afternoon sunlight filtered gently through the cafe window as Claire and Robert sat across from each other, a quiet peace settling between them after the storm of the day. Claire traced her finger lightly around the rim of her coffee cup, her thoughts still lingering on the morning's ordeal. The cold dismissal, the whispered judgments, and the unexpected strength she'd found within herself. Robert reached across the table, taking her hand in his with a warmth that needed no words. "Was all of this really necessary?" Claire asked softly, searching his eyes. "Absolutely," he replied without hesitation. "Not because you're my wife, but because no one should ever be made to feel less than human. No one should be judged by the clothes they wear or the way they look. Everyone deserves respect everywhere." Her lips curled into a small, grateful smile. In that moment, Claire understood that the true gift of the day wasn't the watch she finally held in her hand. It was the reaffirmation of dignity, the reclaiming of a voice that too often goes unheard. Outside, the world moved on, busy and indifferent as always. Yet, for Claire and Robert, something profound had shifted, a quiet revolution sparked by courage and grace. Claire knew the journey ahead would not be easy. Changing minds and breaking down prejudice takes time, patience, and relentless compassion. But the first steps had been taken, and with every conversation, every training session, and every act of kindness, the world grew just a little brighter. To those watching, to those who have ever felt unseen or unworthy, Claire's story stands as a beacon, a reminder that silence is not surrender, that dignity can be fiercely protected without raising a voice, and that change often begins with a single act of courage. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you of your own battles or inspired you to stand taller in the face of judgment, we invite you to share your experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And if you believe in the power of kindness, respect, and quiet strength, subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the human spirit. Together, we can create a world where everyone is seen, heard, and valued no matter what they wear or where they come from. Remember, true luxury is not in possessions or appearances. It is found in the compassion we show one another and the dignity we refuse to give away. Until next time, keep believing in the power of courage, kindness, and the simple grace of being unapologetically yourself.